It's close enough to do 10. Let's just go ahead and get it all started. Hi, my name is Kaisei and thank you guys for coming out to the project management workshop, and I was going to be helping you co-host today. Awesome. Let's get it going. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the process of a project in general, why it's actually needed to actually even have a project management software or even a system to tackle it. And we look at some of the different methodologies that are used in the industry and as well as by any other people. We're going to take a look at some of the options, and we're going to use a practice scenario so we can kind of show you how you might actually utilize some of these systems. So here is the process of a project, and what I have to write the picture is what's generally the engineering method. I'll go down and give a couple things on it. So first, you have to identify a need, and this will be to state how the product, the customer, and the problem it solves, and also how it improves previous designs, because it's important to make sure that you define that initial problem and that initial need correctly, so that when you're going down the line and let's say you're trying to type a solution, you need to make sure it actually makes sense and actually helps solve what you initially defined. Second, you want to do research, and this will include existing patents, any limitations that you might have in your situation, and also to designate your design criteria. This is kind of the stage where you want to make sure that you have a good background, a good basis to go forward from, that you know what you're kind of getting into with everything. Third, you want to create some project requirements, and at this point, this is when you try and prevent confusion and disarray as the project progresses. This is also one of those fail-safe areas where clarify things, it also clarifies things for your team and even the customer as well, to make sure that there's no confusion about what this product is, what it's meant to do, and who it can help out. Fourth, you're gonna evaluate and choose a solution. And this is when you analyze all options and choose a solution to prioritize. You might have looked at it in some of your classes, the decision matrix. That's a pretty common way of trying to narrow down the pros and cons of everything. And this is the stage where you might want to use something like that. Moving on, then it's time to build a prototype. And this is what a lot of engineering people really like to do. They like to actually, get past all of the defining research and everything. Everyone likes to prototype and actually build something. This is when you actually use what you've built up in the past couple steps of the method. This is where you actually use those things and apply them to your prototype, not only to compound with the actual engineering and calculations you have to make this thing work, but also to make sure that you're actually hitting the points that you and your team have decided on, to make sure that nothing gets left behind and that you're making sure that you're actually doing what you're promised to do. After that, you want to test the solution, and testing is also a big part of engineering, quality control. And at this point, if your solution works, great, you can keep moving forward. And if not, then you kind of got to go back and look at all your results and your data and make changes and keep on moving from there, because chances are you're not going to get it all right on the first try. So this is a really important part of reviewing what you've done and working with your team and making sure that everyone's aware of what the issues were, and that way everyone can contribute to different solutions. And last, once you kind of get there and you realize your solution meets these requirements, and now it's time to communicate these results. It's a lot of times overlooked as far as engineering a product, is that you could have something really cool, but if you can't communicate that, your efforts can kind of go to waste. I'm sure if you've taken tech writing, you'll learn how important communication factors and making sure that you can convey your results and even market your product if that's something you're trying to do. But this is basically the overall engineering method. And as you can see, there's a lot of parts to it, and this is just a pretty basic one. And different companies and different projects might have different methods that they want to go through. So it can be kind of hard to keep tabs on all these things and kind of keep them all in mind. And throwing in budget and all these limitations, it can be very hard to actually manage and be able to look down the road and see the bigger picture. And so that's why I'm really a really big supporter of these project management systems. And why I think they're needed for some people. Of course, not everyone needs it, but I really do think it can provide a lot of value to an individual, to a team lead and the team itself. It can improve the team collaboration. when your entire team can kind of see things, see what's going on, it kind of helps you see, it helps everyone feel involved, and also makes sure that no one is kind of left guessing as to what they're supposed to do, or they're like just waiting, you know, like when you're waiting for a text, it's like what do next. It helps you know what's happening, helps scheduling, because then you're not waiting on something else to happen. Task delegation. This is a really big one, especially if you're trying to do anything like in a lead position. And if you're a student, you got school and you got this project and you probably got your own personal life. You can't do everything on your own. Just because you're the head of the project doesn't mean you're the one that has to do everything. So task delegation is really big for a project, and these project management softwares can really help you designate these things and make it clear for everyone, and also improve the communication on these tasks so that no one's feeling, everyone just has a clear understanding of what's going on. And depending on which one you use, it can act as a central access point. A lot of these softwares, you can even add files, integrate your calendar, everything else like that. And of course, there's paid options, and those are, you know, a lot nicer, a lot more focused towards different industries. However, they're paid, and I don't want to pay for it. Next, new team member integration. This is something that is really big because a lot of times people think, I just want to get new team members. I want people to work with us. But you have a system set up for them to actually integrate. It can actually cause them to not want to work on it, because first impressions matter. And if your first impression is, you know, a project in disarray, no one knows what's going on, the team lead is just kind of trying to work on everything, a new member might feel like they don't have any place there. They don't know what they're doing. They don't even know what's going on with the project. So if you have a software, a place, a central hub for them to look at and see what's going on, and help communication and help them see what's going on, and also help them kind of get back into the flow, because all the files, all the research, everything will all be in one point. Remote work, this is something that's always been applicable, and even more so today. Everything's remote now, basically. So that kind of speaks for itself. It helps remote work, and it helps you have fewer meetings. Yeah, I don't mind meetings, but they can get a lot, you know, when you have back-to-back meetings all the time. And it's, you know, it's kind of nice to just be able to work on your own sometimes. So it's really nice in that way. Next. And here's some of the different project methodologies. And these are kind of, these aren't the softwares. These are just kind of the ways that you can present these project management methods. First one is waterfall. It's really old. I think it's like one of the first methodologies they really designated. If you look at the picture, it's like walking down the stairs or going down a waterfall. You know, you kind of just go down each path, and you break it up into stages mainly, and they create a hierarchy and an order of things. That way, kind of helps structure things. But moving forward from that, there's a Kanban board, and this is used a lot in software engineering, because in software engineering there are a lot of stages to it. And I don't know, I don't know if anyone here watched Silicon Valley, but like I watched it, and they had that like a big old board where they're developing different components of their software. You know, it needs to be prioritized, what's due, what's not, what needs to be reviewed, what needs to be backlog, what needs to be validated and tested, and finally complete. So if you look in the picture, it kind of breaks things up into these columns on a big old table. And even the action of moving, like in a physical sense, a sticky note, or virtually moving a tab over an area, can help someone kind of understand where things are going. I'm personally very visual, so that definitely helps me kind of seeing things moving out and being able to see the bigger picture. Next, we have this Gantt chart. It's the one that has secure.ly on it. This is more of kind of like a calendar view. I'll be honest, I don't really like it. I never really use it, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. Yeah, it looks kind of complicated, and when you look at it, you can't really get too much from it. So it's kind of like something that you kind of really need to integrate yourself into. I know businesses use this type of thing, especially with deadlines and different marks they're trying to hit. But last, we have Scrum, and Scrum is also used very heavily in coding and software engineering. As you can see, it's just kind of like a big old loop of trying to get something out of the backlog, get it done, and then loop it in. review it in daily stand-up. A big emphasis on daily stand-up, that every day, if the team is using Scrum, they'll have a daily stand-up where they come review everything, check in, and they'll talk about what they need to do for the day and what needs to get done, prioritize, and what they can choose to backlog. And this is kind of something done along with, your standard meeting, because this kind of gets a way for the members of the project to interact, because in software, you're kind of stuck at the computer. But with this process, it lets the engineers actually interact with their coworkers on a more regular basis. Next.
Okay, and as far as project management program options, there's a lot of stuff out there. So we're going to go through a few things that are pretty accessible and pretty simple to use so that you can look at what you might be using for something like a student project that might have a shorter timeline and a less complicated process than a long-term like company project. Okay, so starting with Trello, this is probably the simplest program that we're going to go over. It's the Kanban style, like Kaisei just went over, so kind of like a billboard style. It's really easy to use, easy for new members to pick up, and it's very visually appealing. So it is like nice for a new team, something that's more simple. And also, it's really easy to integrate it with other project management software if you want to import tasks from Trello into something like Asana. Like, it's really easy to do that. And there's automatic ways for you to do that. And then Asana is kind of like a step up from Trello. It has ways to automatically convert your project tasks from like that waterfall format to the Kanban board format to the Gantt chart format. So it's really nice because you can figure out what works best for you. There's a little bit steeper of a learning curve, but it is a really cool tool for you to figure out what format works best for you and sort of cater it to each of the people in your workspace.
My bad. Here's ClickUp. So this is one I actually personally use, and it kind of inspired me to kind of make this a workshop. ClickUp is not really well known. I know you guys hear about Trello, Asana, Notion, Todoist. ClickUp is kind of something I kind of stumbled on. And what I really like about it is the emphasis on tailoring the experience to the user. And as we'll go on later on when we kind of have an example, there's a lot of flexibility with ClickUp, and it's all free. Of course, they have price plans, but for an individual user and even working with a team, it's all free. You can see here they have assignees, priorities, budgets, and you can create any kind of a category that you want. It has a lot of flexibility in the format of the workspaces. You can see you can have it on a board view, a Kanban view, a calendar, a Gantt, a timeline, and also have just a standard list view. And the number features can be overwhelming. That's kind of something that I personally experienced as well. When I first started picking it up, I saw everything I could do with it, but at the same time, I didn't even know how I wanted to use it, or if I even wanted to use it. So for any new user, it can be a little daunting in that way, but I really do feel like once you can kind of get a bit of a hang on it, just spend some time with it, I think it can really provide some help make your workflow a lot more efficient. And lastly, something that a lot of other programs do provide too, but not to the extent of this one, is the automation. And with this automation, you can basically set commands. It's like little triggers for your tasks, so that, let's say someone finishes a task, then once they hit that it's complete, it'll automatically send a message to someone else in the team that immediately, so that when someone hops on, they can see everything change automatically, and there's no chance of someone forgetting to change the status or move something to a different folder or a different place. And here we have Microsoft Planner. Microsoft Planner is kind of nice because it's integrated into Microsoft Teams, which is something that we as a club have personally been using more. It primarily uses the Kanban style, so these kind of categories or buckets, if you like to call them, and then how the different tasks and processes below them. One thing is that you must have a paid Microsoft account, either in the professional or the student. And of course, we don't have to really worry about this right now because I believe we're all Cal Poly students here, so we all have, our Cal Poly emails, which are linked to Microsoft. However, if you were trying to use this, maybe in the future, wherever you might work or however you might want to use this type of software, if once you lose that Cal Poly email, it's possible that you might have to find yourself paying for an account. So that is just something to kind of think about with this. But the benefit of it being a Microsoft product is that it works with all of the other Microsoft products. So Docs, Slides, Excel, Notes, anything. It all ends super well. It's very hassleless, painless, really easy to get everything in. But one more thing that kind of knocks it down a bit in my eyes at least is it lacks features that integrate new members. As you can see, it's pretty plain, and you can add a background. That's about it with this one. I think its simplicity can provide some benefits, but also some negatives, because unless you want to kind of have things relatively simple and focus more on direct communication with your members so you can work out those kind of details, there's not a lot that you can get too much. Little tabs. You can't like prioritize things, set their statuses, set their progress. So it can be harder if you want to set that up in this format. It can be harder for new members to kind of integrate into that because of how simple it is. It's a lot harder to actually get into the detailed things. You can't like at people in a comment. There's no general search bar. So if you're trying to find a task that was done like a month ago and you need to know about it, good luck finding it. And yeah, it's definitely not a bad option. However, it does have its limitations, but it also does have the benefits of being a Microsoft product and having that integration as well.
Okay, and now to give you an idea of how you're going to actually be implementing each of these programs, we're going to give sort of example scenario and then the typical things that you would have to put in to an engineering project. So usually you'd have to keep track of your budget, you'd have to delegate tasks, maybe meet some deadlines, and then have regular check-ins with your team. And on the slide here, you can see kind of a rough estimate of how long each task will take. And that's a really great way to, before you even go into the program, decide like, okay, how long is each of these tasks going to take? And how should I organize them so I can meet this final deadline, which in this case would be like a 6-week deadline. Sorry. So to start with Asana, here in the little picture, you can see that I put the task into kind of like a Gantt flowchart type of thing. And with this function, you can kind of create a timeline and then you can overlap whichever tasks you think can be overlapped and then have tasks that sort of rely on each other be in the same row. And then it's color coded based on how important each task is. So it helps your team really visualize what's going on, like what's in progress. And then if there's anything they need to move forward, it's really easy to just scoot it forward, extend the timeline, and then adjust your entire chart as needed.
Okay, here's Trello. So I hope I don't mess this up, but I'm going to kind of show you, I'm going to actually go through each of the softwares, and they're all online, and try and show you the different ways that you can actually work with them. So if this doesn't work. Is it showing up?
You might have to reshare just your screen instead of like a single window.
Are we there?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So this is Trello. It's super bare bones because I wanted to show you guys kind of how you can fill it out. But that's basically it. You see you have these little bins, and you see you can add a card. So I'm just going to run through some of the little example that we have. So research product specifications. So maybe you want to look at the limitations. So I would go into the research tab, which I created, and I type in, evaluate existing product specifications. And it works with Grammarly. I don't know if you guys use Grammarly, but it's super good. I love it. And you can add the card. And here, does my mouse show up? Okay, sweet. So yeah, here you can put members, labels, and positions. So I don't have any members in here, but let's say I wanted Ally to kind of take care of this one, take charge on this one. I could mark her there, and when she opens this Trello, she'll have to see that it was marked there, and of course it should go along with normal communication and designating tasks as well. But this could be a good way for people to not forget about what they have to do. And let's say I wanted to, for the PER, I want to make sure we create a presentation. And we know that this presentation is, due in a week. So I'd add this card, and then I hit this little icon, and I can change the due date. So let's just say it's due on Friday. And I can change the due date time. Okay. I could change the due date time, and I can even have it set a reminder. So I'll just save this, due on October 6th, save. And that's basically how you kind of create tasks. I won't bore you guys by going through each and every one, but another aspect of this is that if you choose to do so, you can also create buckets of to do, doing, reviewing, and done. And that can help a lot with task delegation rather than more project processes. But let's say I had a done bin. I could take this look into patents, and I can drag it and just drag it into, we're going to imagine this is a done bin. Drag it into there. That way, along with normal communication with your team members can see these things, and it'll log times, and you can add any comments on them to make sure that everyone's kind of aware of what's going on. Comment, and these comments can be shared with everyone on your team. And here you have more options of what you like to do with them. And of course, I'm only going to be talking about the free versions of these softwares, and I believe they all provide something great on the free version. However, with paid, you obviously get more. But it's kind of basic, to be honest. Not a lot of customization, but I can definitely see how members can really benefit from this. At the very least, having a structure such as this. And so next, I have ClickUp. Is it still showing the Trello?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just talk to you guys about it. So ClickUp. So now we have ClickUp. I'm going to take a look at ClickUp real quick. So ClickUp, as you can see at an initial glance, looks like a lot more. But that's kind of the beauty of ClickUp, is you can actually create different views. So let's say I wanted to take a list view, but I kind of want to change how I list it. I can hit board here, and now it'll actually show me these different things in a different format, similar to the Kanban style. So with ClickUp, you don't really have to kind of set yourself into a particular methodology. You can create different views. You can also create calendars, pie charts, timelines, different ways to view the information, and sometimes based on if they have a due date as well. If you have something that you just kind of need to remember to do, you just have it in the list form, and then you don't really have to worry about the time. But if you have homework assignments and lab assignments and deadlines, you probably have the deadlines put in there and view it in the calendar. I definitely do this for myself as well. Yeah, I definitely use this extensively on a daily basis myself, not only just for projects, also for schoolwork, because like if I click on finalize budget, there's all these options of what you can do. And descriptions, to do, these statuses, in progress, ready, and then complete. So you can see the different colors, and once again, very visual. So seeing those distinctions of color helps me really see where something is along. Like, sometimes if you're working on homework and you're kind of done with it, kind of want to do something else, you can change the status to in progress. So you know that you kind of can see that it needs to be done, but at least you're not starting from nothing. I just really click it. So I'm gonna stop talking about it too much, but also the automation, it's a little more complicated. I'm definitely not even a pro at it at all, but automation, like I was speaking about earlier. You can something where if I put a presentation in progress, based on how I program it to automate, it can send a message to everyone else or someone else, and it can trigger something to be created so that if you don't want your workspace to be cluttered with all of these things that need to be done, however, they're not, really required until the prerequisites are made. If something is marked as complete, you can set it to create a new task that you already created prior, just that it was hidden from view, just to kind of clean up your workspace and make it so that nothing's really ever cluttering, and you can have a really clear a chronological view of what you need to do. And next is water filter with the planner, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take a break. I need to drink water. But lastly, here's Microsoft Planner. This is something that we as a club have used before. We've migrated away from it because it's not that great, but it can be great for you. And so that's why we're telling you about it. Here we have a couple bins we made. So here we have research, team overview, PDR, prototyping, testing, CDR, budget. Kind of like Trello, where it's really basic in the view. It's nice in the way that it's simple and pleasant to the eyes to look at and doesn't kind of overload you. But at the same time, depending on your work style and just kind of your general personality or how you like to organize things, this might be better for you. And I wish I were like you, because this looks way easier. But it's kind of the same. It's very similar to Trello, actually. The only real thing distincting it away from it is that it's part of the Microsoft suite. So I can't emphasize how much that is beneficial, especially once you start working with more files, more people. You waste so much time just trying to look for a file and drag it into something else. And then by the time you're done organizing everything, well, you wasted a bunch of time. But, still an option. So here we can click on something, and this is a fake thing I made. You can assign things, you can add a label. So these would be like pink, red, or what. You could rename these, and based on the color, you can have a priority set. So sometimes I put high priority, low priority, backlog, needs more hashing out. And you can put different priorities, their start dates, notes, and you can add a sub checklist into it so that you don't have to fill out your workspace with a ton of little tasks that need to get done and that you're going to forget about, but they're kind of minimal and they're really part of something bigger. You can add a checklist like this so that you can actually create little subtasks that you can kind of click off of. And then once you've clicked off all of those things, then you can close this task and then you can move on from it. And it has a comment section here for collaborative work. Yeah, and it adopts a similar style of dragging things around, which I think is beneficial. However, I just kind of like, okay, this shouldn't be about what I like. It should be about presenting things. Okay, I'm gonna stop. It's very simple. It's very clean. And I will say that a lot of your professors probably actually like using this. I know I have professors who, a lot of times use Slack, GroupMe, text, email. A lot of professors like using this Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Planners because that's kind of what they're forced to use. With their Cal Poly emails, everything's kind of Microsoft. So it's definitely a benefit for communicating with your professor if they're open to using Planner and Teams in general or any of the Microsoft Suite options. It's a really good way to get in touch with their professor, sometimes even faster than email, based on how they like to use things. And I know that a lot of industry positions have also started adopting Microsoft Planner and Microsoft Teams more. The Microsoft Suite it keeps on growing, and it's pretty solid. And it's definitely a big part of industry. I think my dad uses it too. Yeah, I talked too much, so we're gonna go back to the presentation. Let's stop sharing. Okay.
And then to wrap up the presentation, we're just going to go over a few things to consider when you're actually going to choose your organizational method. The first thing to start with is kind of what is your team most familiar with, especially if it's a more short-term project like a class project. You probably don't want to spend like a week or so figuring out how to use Asana if it's like a pretty simple project and none of your group members have any experience with it. So like it might be better to go with something like Trello or Microsoft Planner because it's super easy to pick up. How flexible are your goals? Do you want something where if you have a delay, you can move everything ahead of it at once? Or is it something where, um, is it something where the deadlines are very like hard so that you don't have to reorganize everything once you meet challenges with your project development process? And then what's the priority of your planning using this program? Like, are you using it to delegate work? Are you using it for time management? Is it sort of a combination of both? That'll help you pick which works best for you and which addresses the problems that you might face with your project management.
Any questions?